What is going on, everybody? We are back, episode number 13 of the CC podcast. You guys, if you're watching on YouTube, you probably see a familiar face here. His name is Sam Kemp. What up? Speaker from Winter Camp. We are excited to have him back or with us today. And then obviously Jacob Allen Nielsen, my main squeeze, my main man, my friend, my friend. We're excited to be here. What's going on, fellas?
Friend.
What up?
Yes.
Dude, I'm feeling good, dude. It's beautiful outside. I got the fan flowing on me ever so gently. I'm out here. I got my carrot juice, a little bit spicy. Got a lot of ginger in that thing. I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling cleansed.
I love that.
Yeah.
How are you doing, man?
You know, I'm doing well. I put a sweatshirt on just because it's like kind of overcast. And so I just wanted, I know I can't probably wear this for like another 4 or 5 months after this. So today I'm just owning it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to wear a sweatshirt. It's kind of cold. So,
bro, you got to soak up that sweater weather when you can in SoCal.
I know. I know.
So, dude, before we get into
to be with you guys.
Dude, excited for you guys, or for you to be with us. Also, before we get started into the main topic of conversation, we got to ask you, are you a LaCroix boy? Do you like LaCroix?
You know, LaCroix. Yeah.
We need a new guest.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Okay, here's what I'll say about LaCroix. LaCroix is just okay, but I have it all the time. Okay?
Oh, okay, I can respect that.
Like it's not great, but I drink it all the time. So, yeah.
Right. What's your go-to flavor?
I love grapefruit. I don't know what it's actually called. It has some fancy name because it's LaCroix.
The pamplemousse, dude.
Yeah, that one. So,
okay, we just had some beef, you know, specifically me with some of my students. They were bagging on LaCroix, so I had to snap back at them. So Mike and I were talking about it on the podcast a couple weeks ago, but just wanted to check in with you and see where you kind of stood.
Yeah. I have some in my fridge if that helps.
There you go. Yeah. I think that helps. I think you're in support, you know.
There you go.
Yeah. So we have you on the show. We want, you know, number one, we love you. We appreciate just your insight and your wisdom. And we want to talk about something that is huge in what's going on in the world today, and a conversation that the church, especially Bethany specifically, is slow to get started. But we want to talk about racial reconciliation, social injustices in certain ways, and wanting to hear from you specifically, because it seems like your church is a little bit more modern, maybe a little bit more progressive as well in those sort of things. So we wanted to hear from somebody who maybe just has a different sense, or, you know, has at least dipped their toe in the pool of racial reconciliation. So Sam, we wanted to hear, what is your demographic of your church before we get started into everything? What's the general demographic?
So good. Yeah. So we're a multi-ethnic church, and we are intergenerational church. And so we say that every week from the stage. So we're really, what that means is everyone's welcome, and that everyone matters. And it's really a beautiful thing. I mean, when we met in person, you would look around and you would just see, I mean, everyone is represented. Every ethnicity is represented. And so we're in Monrovia, and so that's kind of like the center of maybe not the center, but in the San Gabriel Valley. And the San Gabriel Valley is one of the most ethnically diverse regions in the entire U.S. So, it's been a really special, demographic, and just chance to get to know people who don't look like me. But you'll look around, and MLK has this often said that Sundays at 11 a.m. Is often the most segregated hour of the week.
Yep.
And so we've just said, not on our watch at Fellowship. Not on our watch is that going to happen. And so we have Black people, we got African American people, we got white people, we got Asian American, we got Latinx community, we got our Arabic community. I mean, everything all coming together to worship Jesus. And that's the center of it all. So that's a little bit about our demographic.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like we live in Long Beach, and we are a super racially diverse community as well. But unfortunately, our church, and I would say our I feel like our youth groups, and Mike, you can speak to this. I feel like our youth groups are really racially diverse.
Yeah.
You know, there's like, I feel like we're a good representation of the city, but maybe not the main service at Bethany isn't sort of representative in that way. Just because we're a melting pot. We got like Cambodia Town, Chinatown down here, all sorts of different places that people are coming in from the port and stuff. But like, yeah, we aren't representative. We're like probably 90 or probably like 80% Caucasian, and then maybe some Hispanic, African American sprinkled in there. But I would say that's pretty much the demographic. Would you say so, Mike?
Yeah, I feel like our youth ministries are definitely more diverse generally than our church is. And I love what Jeff says all the time. He's like, if we're actually going to fulfill our vision and reach our city, our church is going to get more diverse, not less. And like that needs to be our kind of focus.
Yeah.
And so I think even in my year and a half of being there, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, I feel like I've even seen that from when I first stepped in to even a year and a half from now, which is good. But it can't stop. We can't just get happy with where we're at, you know? We have to continue having those conversations and reaching everyone in our city. So
yeah, that's really good. It's really good. So my first question to you, Sam, is how have you been involved in any conversation at your church about racial reconciliation? Is that like something you talk about in a staff meeting, or is that something you guys bring up consistently? What does that look like for your guys' church and your staff specifically?
Yeah. So we, it's really interesting. I mean, we, as a staff, some people have gotten, would see this and they've either even left fellowship, or not stopped attending church because they're like, oh, you're not progressive enough. Or some people are like, you're not conservative enough. Like, you kind of get it all.
Yep.
And, what I think is great about our church is that all of this is a part of our discipleship journey. So as we follow Jesus, it's not disconnected from the gospel or anything like that. It's a part of following Jesus is to be reconciled with one another. And it's really all about love, like loving our neighbor. And so I think for our staff, we talk about it. It's really ingrained in our DNA. The gospel will always be the thing that centers us, but reconciliation is a huge part of just being reconciled with one another. So I mean, even as a church, in our staff meetings, we've been talking about everything going on in this COVID-19 season. So we're dealing with this like invisible enemy that is non-discriminatory, meaning like, it can infect any of us. And a writer says it this way, like, we're so worried about being exposed to the virus that the virus is kind of exposing us in our own systems, in our own ways of seeing the world and all of that. So we've had a lot of conversations about, what happened last week with Ahmaud Arbery and really the news that surfaced 2 months later from a death that happened of a young Black man by two white men who were armed and shot him and took his life for going on a jog. And so it's just, we sit and together lament for stories like that we hear together. We had, it was interesting as a staff, we had a meeting the day after it all came out. And one of our leaders was just like, I feel like we have to sit here and create space to lament what actually happened in order to even move past and remind ourselves like what we're here for as a multi-ethnic church. So I think that's how our church has been kind of navigating this conversation. It's in everything, but it's all connected to the gospel and really a result of the gospel touching our hearts and transforming us.
That's cool. I think, Bethany has been a historically programmed church. So very like regimented, very like, you need a prayer time for this, you need this and this and this. And something that I really picked up from your story, which was really cool, was just the opportunity that, the day after this happened, this thing surfaced, like you guys just took time to lament, right? Like there's an opportunity that's just a part of your culture. You know what I mean? Like for us, we would have had to program some scheduled thing to meet up at like 4:45 to lament
Right.
together, while there's like this cool, like this is your culture, this is ingrained in each and every one of you, to sit there and just lament in that, which I think is really neat. Just a quick question,
Yeah.
like what else did you guys do in the wake of Ahmad's death? Like, did you guys speak at it in the pulpit? Was there like a special devotional? What did that look like for you guys?
Yeah. So our pastor has been doing this. We're calling it Good News Today, and every
Okay, cool.
morning at 8 a.m. he's getting up early and doing devotionals on Instagram Live and Facebook Live and all that. So we didn't know this as a staff, but he kind of went in that next day just as a black man, like kind of his own processing and his
Right.
own like view of everything. And so just as a um, yeah, as a white man, this for me it was like, dude, it was. I had to sit there and just learn, and it's not very often that we get to see and hear from yeah, our black brothers and sisters about how they're processing what's going on. So it
Right.
was really, I mean, that was an unexpected moment for me just to be able to hear him, and I felt so thankful for our pastor. But then um, he was actually not scheduled to speak this past weekend because it was Mother's Day.
Okay.
So so he really addressed it there, but then as a staff we've been um, talking through it. Really, it was that one meeting, and then kind of in other meetings as well. Whenever it had come up, it was kind of known. We're all kind of grieving this and processing this, and all in different spaces on this topic too. So
Cool. Is there anything in your own personal life, any sort of prejudices that somebody has built up against you, or have you been affected by racial inequality in any sort of ways, or anybody said any racial slurs? Because tell us your
yeah,
ethnicity first, and then get
yeah.
into if there's any stories you can think of.
Yeah, so I'm half Middle Eastern, half white. So Middle Eastern, it's a really confusing thing because oftentimes on like the census, there's no like check this box if you're Middle Eastern or anything like that. It's kind of
Right.
I'm in the other category of um, and uh, and so yeah, I think or it's white, and so yeah, I think all that to say, I grew up in a Middle Eastern in a post 9/11 world where being Middle Eastern was for sure not the best thing, especially with
Right.
really images that you see of people who are Middle Eastern are of terrorists or people that are um, bombing something or like, it's all negative even in media, and obviously surrounding 9/11 there's a heightened awareness, and so yeah, um, I was in elementary school when it all happened, and man, it was so hard for me because what happened was people would start saying stuff to me or calling me names,
Yeah.
and what I would do is when I started hearing it and then internalized, and so I started internalizing so much that I all I wanted to do was be white, but I got so tan
Yeah.
in the summer that I didn't look white, and
Right.
then uh, and then when I started growing this like well originally it was a peach fuzz mustache, and I didn't really have a full beard, but I would shave all of it to look less Middle Eastern because of what people said about me, and so I internalize a lot. And all I'll say is I feel like what it did looking back is it helped build my empathy
Mm.
for what people of color have been going through for generations and for years. For me to be able to empathize with people of color, and but then also I have to acknowledge I'm also white, and so I can't allow that to dismiss any privilege that I have, and that my family has, given just even like I'm like a lighter skinned brown, so
Right.
I know yeah, just that comes with a certain level of privilege too. So yeah, that's a little bit about my story. Um, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
in the last few years too.
Yeah. And I would say I even identify with that as well, being half Latino, so half Mexican, half Caucasian, half white. It's, you find yourself in the middle ground of like, what do I identify with? And for me, I don't dress as like a typical Latino in my neighborhood or what, the Latinos that I grew up with going to school. So I dressed up like a lot of the white kids, wore DCs, like, Billabong shorts and like
Oh yeah.
puffy etnies, looking like a dang fool.
Oh yeah.
But like, I also identified with all the Latinos in my class that, their moms were making homemade salsa and enchiladas and tacos, and we were celebrating Cinco de Mayo. And it was this, there's this weird like dual edge of like, okay, I'm, hanging out with my white family. They call me like a wetback,
Mhm.
or
Yep.
they say like, you got to go mow the lawn and like joke it off, haha, punch you in the shoulder. And I'm supposed to just brush it off. And, same thing. I internalized it because I would even laugh like, ha ha ha, because I didn't know what
Right.
else to say. So
Right.
that is definitely the same thing, has built up like an empathy for me of like people that are, are full African American or full Latino that experience way harsher things that I have ever experienced, because I don't think I've ever experienced, like job preference. Like I've never experienced like something where
Mm.
people aren't hiring me because I'm half Latino. Like that, I've never had that. But African American brothers and sisters out there, get looked over all the time because of that. So yeah, definitely
Yeah.
similar to you, building up that empathy.
Yeah,
Sure.
I appreciate
Yeah.
you
Mike,
guys.
did you have something you want to say?
I appreciate you guys sharing your stories. I've shared with you, Jacob. Like, obviously, I'm. If you take Europe and put it in a blender, I'm just white as all get out.
Yeah.
Um, and so it, it's one of those things. And Sam, you commented on my post on Instagram. It's just like I'm just tired of not saying anything because I feel like I can't, because I can't relate.
Mm.
Um, because I see the injustices, I see the things that are wrong, and it breaks my heart. And even Jeff was speaking to this. Like, there's fear of saying something that's going to offend, like in the middle of you trying to support and like voice your opinion of how you think it's wrong. And like even me typing that out, I was like, I'm going to say something that someone's going to get offended, and I would like delete it. And then 5 minutes later, I went back to it, and it's just, for me, hearing your guys' stories, it's just like I care about you guys so much. I have, who would have been my best man in my wedding if it wasn't for him playing pro ball. Like, he's black, and like just some of my best friends, like they're not white. And so like just hearing people's stories over and over, I'm just like, I know I'm going to say things that are wrong or socially incorrect, but like knowing I just need to say something.
Yeah.
Because people do listen to me, and being in the position that I'm in, I need to say something, and I'm tired of not saying anything when I see those things. And I'll speak to you. I was telling Jacob, like, I didn't grow up knowing that I had any privilege. I didn't grow up knowing that was even a thing until like probably the last 5 years of my life. I think when I really started to notice that it was a thing is when I moved to California, and I was just around a more racially diverse group of people, and I began to see those things in my life, and it just was not okay with me. I was just like, I didn't grow up seeing it, and so I'm just like, I can't believe this actually happens, and
Yeah.
Right.
so that's where I'm at.
And man, I'll say like, I just feel like we've been coached as a world to not be able to see racial injustice and white privilege. Like
Yeah.
we've been like, our world has tried really hard to cover it up.
Yeah.
And it takes us being able to see things, and when you can see it, you can't really unsee things. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard
Right.
to put those. Yeah, when you start seeing systems, when you start seeing people who are treated differently, it's like, I can't unsee this stuff. So
Yeah.
I love the journey you're on, Mike, and yeah, and even Jacob, what you've been sharing. Both of you uniquely have, yeah, really just unique voices in this conversation, but we need both of them. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I think, we've already shared this topic can be so polarizing
Mhm.
because of fear of, Mike said it, like getting something wrong,
Right.
and the way I relate to that is like, I stepped into this role, like not having any sort of theological background. And so I stepped into, and I was scared to like share in front of a bunch of high school students. Cause like, what if I did say the wrong thing, or I wasn't perfectly correct in my theology? And like, that could, it's a similar in this sense of like, you are going to make mistakes and you're going to say things that are wrong sometimes and you're going to have to own it. But it's okay. It shouldn't stop us from continuing forward in these sort of conversations. And so I'm tired of being scared or being fearful of getting something wrong and wanting to press into that a little bit more
Mhm.
Yeah.
because
And it all comes
otherwise,
down to, oh, go ahead.
no, go for it. Go for it. You're good.
Okay. I was just going to say, it all comes down to humility. And I
Mhm.
think just being able to, the young prophet Kendrick Lamar, I won't say the rest of the song, but be humble. And,
Yeah.
and it's, dude, it's like, you got to be able to hear, like, oh, I said something that I didn't, that my intention was good, but the impact is really what matters,
Mhm.
because that's kind of
Right.
what we all have to navigate through. But I think if somebody knows you have a heart of love and of compassion and
Mhm.
empathy, you can go back to and just say, "Hey, I know your intentions were all great, were so pure. When you
Right.
said this, it did hurt me." And I've had people say this to me, and it's like that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just offended somebody.
Right.
But those are the moments where I grow the most. Is when I have to humble myself, and really just learn like how to be an ally and advocate for people who don't look like me. So
Yeah.
Right. So going on to the next question, what has your youth ministry, what does that conversation look like for you to have it at a junior high level? If you're able to have it at a junior high level, and then what are some actions that you've taken, you've put upon your junior hires or high schoolers to kind of fit into that role of understanding there or understanding what
yeah,
this topic even is about.
yeah. So we as a church, we care deeply about this racial reconciliation. So we have a Center for Racial Reconciliation, which I know a lot of churches. I've never heard of this. So I we're so lucky to have somebody whose literally full time job is to
Wow.
oversee racial reconciliation at Fellowship. But
Oh,
um, what that looks like is they've created some workshops with a team of people, and the workshops really like we go through history of racism in America. We focus on obviously the American context because that's where we're located, but and really as a church we've said this, and this goes down to youth ministry as well. Like we hope you're in life groups with people who don't look like you, who don't vote like you. Now I know middle schoolers can't vote. That's
Sure.
probably a good thing, but
Yeah.
uh, we
a really good thing.
yeah, but I love y'all middle schoolers out there, but I just think it's the heart behind it is, are you in community with people who are not the same as you? Like,
Hmm.
are you with people? Are you learning from people who see the world different than you, who are raised differently than you? We go through a series pretty much every year. We do a relationship series, we do a Jesus series, and we do a racial reconciliation series. So it's really ingrained in our culture. Um, to do things like with students, there it's a little bit more tangible. So we've done things like a privilege walk. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but where like there's basically a list of questions,
Okay.
um, and you take like a step forward if you have ever benefited from something like what that question is bringing up. There's some really good videos on YouTube of a privilege walk, but they're really powerful. They're really, really, really hard because usually what happens is in order to see our white privilege, that's what this walk really intends to do. And so all the white people are at the front of the line, and all the people of color are typically at the very end of the line or back of the line. And you just see the difference of like if we started a race, people of color are really starting way behind white people, um, just because of the systems and structures that are in place in our world today. And so those are the hardest nights because
Right.
it's hard for people of color to to share their experience and see their experience in a way. They sit next to these kids every week, but they may not know how far behind their friends are or how far in front of their friends are. So it's a heartbreaking night, but it's one of the most powerful nights that we've had, just where people start to really tangibly see like what's happening in our world today.
That's so good. Yeah, we've done something, a type of night like that, but not geared directly towards racial reconciliation. But yeah, it's those nights they're heavy.
Yeah,
Really heavy nights, because you see the kids that feel like they're outcasts, or are experiencing that, and it's powerful, even for the 11-year-old that's in 6th grade that is fresh out of mama doing everything for him and still in, and to see that, oh, my friend that's in my small group experiences life a lot differently than I do. But yeah, that's a really, send me some of those questions.
Yeah, I will,
because I'd love to consider how we can work something like that in.
Yeah. And that's so good and necessary. Like, the world is giving our students so much information, whether that's from media or whatever outsource or however else they outsource their news. And like, it just gives you an opportunity to speak into something that's so necessary and so connected to God's love for all of us. And so it's a really cool opportunity to see you sharing that with junior hires. Like, it does start with the ground up, once they learn those things, that'll stick with them for the rest of their lives. So I think that's super necessary and cool to see you guys pushing that even in junior high. That's really rad. I love that. What are some, well, I want to ask you this on a personal level, because I've been doing like research and stuff. What are some like materials you guys use in that racial reconciliation ministry? Like, is there a specific program you guys use, or did you guys create your own, or what does that look like?
Yeah, we created our own, and honestly, I mean, we have a whole like book recommendation. I'll actually email this to you guys just in case, so you can have this. But I don't know why that sounded so old. I'll email this to you guys, but here we are.
I love that.
Yeah, we're so professional.
Yep.
Yeah. But we go through scripture and have even seen how scripture has contributed to, or people have misused scripture to, and bent the truth of it to like really, like, I mean, it talks about slaves obey your masters in scripture. And so we talk through things like that. We talk through what the Bible says about reconciliation. Like, really, I mean, Jesus has this moment in the Sermon on the Mount where he says, if you have something against your brother or sister, drop your worship and go reconcile with them. That's a pretty powerful statement, especially when we think like we're supposed to just worship Jesus. Like, that's the goal of our life, but so much can get in the way of our worship. And Jesus, I think, cares so much about, obviously, our vertical reconciliation, but also our horizontal, our reconciliation with people. So much so that he would say, don't worship me yet. Go and reconcile. Like, that's crazy. So,
no.
We talked. Oh, was I might have
You quick glitched there for a second.
Sorry.
You got Mike Wi-Fi over there.
Dude, chill out.
My bad.
No, you're good, bro. I'm just kidding.
On that youth pastor budget, bro. None of us got money.
Same.
True. Yeah, I think that's such a huge thing that Jesus is saying. Yeah, before you even worship me, before all of that, make sure you're reconciling with your brother and sister. I think that is absolutely huge. So right now it looks like Sam Kemp, he's trying to figure out his Wi-Fi situation. So, there we go. Yeah, you look crystal clear, dude.
Oh, amazing.
Complexion on fleek, bro.
I just turned off my Wi-Fi. So,
okay.
I guess I should have been doing this the whole time.
You must not have Sprint like me.
Yeah. I have 1 bar right now on AT&T. So we're just hanging on right now.
I love that.
So good.
Okay, so one of the last questions, and as we're winding this interview down, or this, our podcast down, it's like, what do you think, or what are some ways that the church as a whole can do a better job of having this conversation?
Yeah.
Like we can do it separately, but what does it look like for us as a whole to stand up for something like this? Do you have any thoughts or ideas on that?
Yeah. I got a couple.
Let's hear it.
I was thinking about this. I'm like, yeah, I mean, for our church context, I mean, we got a multi-ethnic church, and so what we've had to say is, just because you attend a multi-ethnic church does not mean you're not a racist. Like, it doesn't just,
Right.
it's not a checkbox. Like, just because you got a black pastor does not mean you're not a racist. Like, we all have to do the hard work of reconciliation, knowing our own racial identity and history and all that. But I think we've even said, the goal isn't even diversity. The goal is to be reconciled with one another. So that's been really clarifying for us, because we've kind of just said, like, it's not enough to just say, I attend this and therefore I'm good. We got to actually push people towards relationship with one another. So I think the theme of that is, we can't do this alone. Like, we need each other. And I mean, we have to support each other. So I would even say, like, white people got to support white people. People of color got to support people of color. And then we got to bring each other to one another and just stay at the table and committed to relationship. And then I think that the next thing is, we're not going to convince people in one conversation to not be racist. Like, we have to, like, kind of get that out of our head, that, like, I'm gonna post this one thing, and it's gonna change their life. I've had people, and I've sat with people, and I had a really good friend of mine ask me this question that I thought was so good. And she just said, well, first she said, we're trying to get each other to become the best version of who we are. And she said this. She said, we were talking about, like, man, I feel like white people just aren't getting this, and this has been really hard for us. And she was like, yeah, I had to sit across the table from my white friend, and I had to say, what would it cost you to even consider that people of color are not lying? Just to consider that people of color aren't just making all this stuff. Like, you have to, like, what would it, just start thinking about this. And so I think that even question was so good, because it kind of helped me get out of that framework of, like, I got to try and convince people that they're being racist or anything like that. Like, that's not, like, we're not going to do that in one conversation. And then third and finally, be learners, and we have to stay educated. Like, we gotta read stuff, we gotta listen stuff, and we have to, like, I think we're not going to be able to read ourselves out of racism, but I think more than anything, we have to just stay educated and be learners and be humble. So yeah,
that's totally fair. Yeah, I think, for us at the beginning of this, this is our conversation. We're having this baby steps into, racial reconciliation and what that looks like for our church to have even a conversation about it. And this is cool. Like, I feel like we're uniting finally. Like, there's an opportunity for us to engage in our community in a different way, in a different manner, and for other people to feel represented just in our community, which I think is really neat. And I think necessary steps, and hopefully, other churches in our neighborhood or where we're from can also connect with this and move towards that as well. Just because I think it's necessary for the gospel to continue to move forward in this time. So
good.
I don't know. Yeah.
Is there any questions?
No, go for it.
Oh, go ahead. I was thinking about I think this is an amazing grace when says, "I once was blind, but now I see."
Right.
And what a sweet, like even summary statement of what reconciliation is all about.
Yeah.
I think especially for white people, like I once was blind, but now I get to see, and I do
Right.
see, and it's moving me to speak up for people, and to correct people, to have coffee meetings with people, all that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah, I can totally see that in my own life too. Of just like I didn't see this as something that was even a thing at one point in my life, and now that I do, it's taken like a conscious effort to pay attention to those things, like on a regular basis. Because I think it's very easy, not just on this topic, to just like go through life with your headphones in and just like do your thing, and like taking the time to, even a few months back, I was going to pick up Jacob, George and Julia. We were going to pick them up, and they live in a rougher neighborhood in Long Beach. And I got pulled over by a cop, and he got up behind me or whatever, sped up, caught up to me, whatever, pulled me over. I'm in a rough part of a neighborhood. It's dark out, whatever. He comes up. I roll down my window. He says what's up to me. He looks at my ID and then just says, "All right, you're good. See ya." And I'm just like, that sat with me weird. I was just like, that conversation would not have been that short if I was not white. And just like taking moments like that to be like, man, I need to really pay attention to this and live differently, and not just be okay with, oh, it was just a quick stop. But like, it would have been different if I wasn't white. And it breaks my heart,
wow, yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. Sam, do you have any questions as we're wrapping this thing up? Do you have any questions for us? Anything you want to ask us about, I don't know, ministry life, this topic specifically? I don't know. Wanted to see if you had any.
I think a question I got for you is, like, what's your dream for reconciliation, racial reconciliation with young people? Like, what are you hoping to see? What do you hope happens? For your context specifically, for middle schoolers and high schoolers.
Yeah, Mike, did you want to go first?
Yeah, I can start. I think it's the awareness piece and starting that conversation early, and even not even just on this topic, but like the awareness, so that the joking that is seemed to be, by them at least, harmless, stops at a younger age. You know what I mean? Like, and even from this issue to like homosexuality, like Jacob and I have talked about this all the time, like the joking words that get said all the time, where it's like we need to stop in those moments, be like, that's not okay, and like have those conversations. And just I guess my heart for my ministry is for students to love each other so well that it's not even on their radar to say something like that, to think in a way that is judgmental or prejudice, to be so educated and so aware of those things that it's almost like subconsciously not even a thing, if that makes sense, which is not a thing I will see next year. It's not a thing I'll see in 5 years, but prayerfully we see growth over the years.
It's good.
Yeah. And I think for high school specifically, I think, I don't see as much. There were students like in the past that would say words like the big word was fag. Like a lot of kids would say like, "Oh, you're being a fag right now," whatever. Like obviously demeaning to people that are, in homosexual relationships or people struggling with that. And so like there's this, you're just instantly drawing a line in the sand of like, you're different than me, so then I'm going to think less of you. And so the church is really good at doing that. Just people in general are really good at doing that.
Yeah.
And so I want to erase or help erase these lines that people continue to draw up, because what are we creating those things for in the first place?
Yeah.
And I think, right now in ministry, I don't see that as often or as representative in the ministry now specifically. But now I would want to build up students to stand up, not just, not say those things, but then also when they see their black friend being made fun of because they're black, or a homosexual student was being made fun of because he's gay or whatever that looks like, I would hope my students would be able to see, like, what would Jesus do in this situation? And he wouldn't just sit there and feel like, oh, wow, I'm not going to say anything because I feel bad, but like stand up for that person. And so I hope I create students that would be willing to stand up, even if they're in the minority of the thinking in that time.
Yeah.
So creating leaders, like creating people that would be willing to stand up in the face of adversity for somebody who's being marginalized or somebody who's being lesser than in that situation. So that's my hope, like if Mike can comb them in such a way where they understand what it looks like for us to all be the same equally in the eyes of God. And then for me as a high school pastor to build them up to be leaders in that, like, I think we got a 1-2 punch, right? Like this, once they leave our ministry, they're representative of what Jesus would do. And that's the hope and goal. Like even having this conversation right now would be like, Mike would erase those lines and then high school would create leaders in such a way that would help represent what Jesus would do in those situations. So that's my goal, at least.
So good. I want to be a middle schooler and a high schooler in your guys' ministry. That's for sure. So that's right.
Appreciate that, bro. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think this has been really good. I don't know. It fills my heart to be able to have these conversations and be honest and real, and obviously invite a friend. We love what you're doing over in Monrovia, and your effect on students and just your energy and charisma and just what you bring to the table. Like, I'm stoked to hear and continue this relationship. It doesn't have to stop during this podcast or anything, like to keep this moving forward. So excited to see what God does in your life, Sam.
Thank you. Big fans of you all at Bethany Church. So so grateful for you guys.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Well, thank you, man. Appreciate you coming on. That is it, people. We love you. We will see you next week for what would be episode number 14. What the heck? All right. Love you guys. Peace.